The microphone clicked off. The music stopped. Simon Cowell stood up from his chair. And in that moment, every single person in the America's Got Talent theater forgot they were watching a competition. Because what was happening on that stage wasn't about winning anymore. It was about something far more powerful. Something that would break the heart of everyone watching, and prove that behind Simon's famously harsh exterior, there was a man who understood grief, loss, and the unbreakable bond between a father and his daughter. Her name was Emma. She was 13 years old. And she was about to sing a song she wrote for her father, a soldier who never came home. The America's Got Talent stage has seen thousands of hopefuls. Singers, dancers, magicians, comedians. Some walk off in triumph. Others in tears. But very few moments in the show's history have had the power to stop everything, to silence an entire studio, to make even the toughest judge in television put down his defenses and step into someone else's pain. This was one of those moments. Emma walked onto the stage holding a folded piece of paper. She wore a simple white dress and around her neck hung something that didn't belong to her, dog tags. Military dog tags. Her father's dog tags. The audience noticed immediately. A few people whispered. Some shifted in their seats. Simon, seated at the judges' table between Heidi Klum and Howie Mandel, leaned forward slightly, his expression unreadable. "Hi," Emma said softly into the microphone. Her voice was small, shaking. "My name is Emma, and I'm 13. "Hello, Emma," Simon said, his tone measured, professional. "What are you going to do for us today?" Emma looked down at the paper in her hands. For a moment, she didn't speak. The silence stretched. The audience waited. Simon watched her carefully. "I'm going to sing a song," she finally said. "I wrote it for my dad. He was in the army. He didn't come back." The room changed. You could feel it. The air became heavier. A few audience members gasped. Heidi's hand went to her chest. Howie's smile faded. And Simon didn't move. He just stared at her, his jaw tight. "I'm so sorry," Simon said quietly. It wasn't his usual tone. There was no sarcasm, no edge. Just sincerity. Emma nodded. She unfolded the paper, glanced at it, then folded it again. "This song is called Come Home. I wrote it the night before his funeral. I never got to say goodbye. So, this is my goodbye." She handed the paper to a stagehand, took a breath, and nodded to the sound engineer. The music began. A soft piano melody, delicate and haunting. Emma closed her eyes. And then she sang. The moment her voice filled the theater, something inside Simon Cowell cracked open. Her voice was pure. Not technically perfect, but devastatingly honest. Every word she sang carried the weight of a child's grief, the kind of pain that doesn't fade, that lives inside you forever. She sang about waiting by the window. About believing he'd walk through the door. About the flag they gave her mother, and how it didn't feel like enough. About how she still set a place for him at dinner sometimes, just in case. The audience was frozen. Some were crying openly. Others stared in stunned silence. Heidi's mascara was already running. Howie had his head in his hands. And Simon was gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles were white. Then, halfway through the song, Emma's voice broke. Not from a missed note. From emotion. She kept singing, but tears were streaming down her face. She was reliving it all, right there, in front of millions. And that's when Simon did something no one expected. He raised his hand. And he stopped the show. The music cut off. Emma stopped singing. She looked up, confused, terrified. Had she done something wrong? The audience gasped. Producers backstage scrambled. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't protocol. Simon never stopped a performance unless it was terrible. And this was the opposite of terrible. Simon stood up. He didn't say anything. He just walked. Out from behind the judges' table, across the stage floor, his footsteps echoing in the dead silence. Emma stood frozen, clutching the microphone. He stopped a few feet in front of her. "Emma," Simon said, his voice quiet but firm enough for the microphones to catch. "I need you to do something for me." She nodded, tears still on her cheeks. "I need you to take a breath. Just one. Can you do that?" She inhaled, shaky but obedient. "Good," Simon said. "Now I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay?" "Okay," she whispered. "Do you want to finish the song?" Emma looked at him, surprised. I think so." "You think so?" Simon's tone wasn't harsh. It was gentle. Almost paternal. "Emma, if this is too hard, you don't have to. No one here will judge you. You've already shown more courage than most people ever will." Emma shook her head quickly. "No. I want to. I have to. He needs to hear it." Simon's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened. He nodded once. Then he did something even more unexpected. He reached out and placed his hand on her shoulder. "Then sing it for him," Simon said. "Not for us. Not for the cameras. For him. And don't stop. No matter what you feel. Finish it. Because he deserves to hear every word." The theater was silent. Emma looked up at Simon, and for a moment she wasn't standing in front of a judge. She was standing in front of someone who understood. Someone who saw her. Not as a contestant. As a daughter who lost her father. Simon stepped back. He didn't return to his chair. He stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching. The music started again. Emma lifted the microphone. And this time, when she sang, she didn't look at the audience. She looked up. As if her father was somewhere above her, listening. Her voice was stronger now. Still emotional, still raw, but unwavering. She sang about love that doesn't end. About goodbyes that never feel complete. About how she would carry him with her, in every step, every breath, for the rest of her life. The final note hung in the air, long and aching. And then silence. For 3 full seconds, no one moved. No one breathed. And then the audience exploded. They didn't just clap. They stood. Every single person. A standing ovation that shook the walls. People were sobbing. Strangers were hugging. Heidi was openly weeping. Howie wiped his eyes with his sleeve. And Simon, still standing on the stage, didn't clap. He just watched Emma. His jaw was tight. His eyes glistening. He walked over to her. Slowly. Deliberately. And when he reached her, he knelt down. On one knee, so they were eye level. "Emma," Simon said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "What you just did took more strength than anything I've ever seen on this stage. Your father would be so proud of you. And I want you to know something." Emma looked at him, tears streaming freely now. "You didn't just sing that song for him. You sang it for every parent who ever served. For every child who's ever waited by a door that never opened. And you gave them a voice. That's what real artistry is. Not perfection. Truth." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small card. He handed it to her. "This is my personal number. If you ever need anything at all, you call me. Do you understand?" Emma nodded, clutching the card like it was sacred. Simon stood. He turned to the other judges. "I don't need to hear from anyone else. She's going through." Heidi immediately hit her buzzer. Then Howie. Then the guest judge. For yes. But Simon wasn't finished. He walked back to the judge's table. And then, without hesitation, he slammed his hand down on the golden buzzer. Golden confetti exploded from the ceiling. The audience screamed. Emma collapsed to her knees, sobbing. And Simon, for the first time in America's Got Talent history, walked back onto the stage during a golden buzzer moment. He helped Emma to her feet. He hugged her. And he said something into her ear that the cameras didn't catch. But whatever it was, it made her hold on tighter. Subscribe now, Because what happened after the cameras stopped rolling will remind you why this show isn't just about talent. It's about humanity. Backstage, after the confetti settled and the audience filed out, Emma sat in the green room with her mother. They were both still crying. Her mother, a woman who looked like she'd been carrying the world on her shoulders for years, held her daughter close. A production assistant knocked softly on the door. "Emma? Someone wants to see you." Emma looked up. Simon Cowell stepped into the room. He wasn't surrounded by cameras. No producers. No audience. Just him. "I hope it's okay that I'm here," Simon said. "I wanted to talk to you. Both of you." Emma's mother stood, wiping her eyes. "Of course. Thank you. For everything you did out there." Simon shook his head. "I didn't do anything." "She did." He turned to Emma. "I meant what I said out there. You have a gift. But more than that, you have something most people spend their whole lives searching for. You have purpose." He sat down across from them. "I lost my father a few years ago. And I'll tell you something I've never said publicly. I didn't get to say goodbye either. I was working. Always working. And when he passed, I realized I'd spent so much time building a career that I forgot to tell him what he meant to me." Emma's mother's breath caught. Simon continued. "So when you walked out on that stage, and you sang that song, you weren't just singing for your dad. You were reminding all of us that time isn't guaranteed. That love needs to be spoken. That goodbyes matter." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "This isn't about the show. This isn't about the competition. This is from me. To you." He handed it to Emma's mother. "There's enough in there to cover Emma's education. All of it. College, music school, whatever she wants. Because I don't want her to ever have to choose between her dreams and her stability the way so many kids have to." Emma's mother broke down. I can't. "You don't have to say anything," Simon said. "Just promise me you'll let her keep singing. Not for fame. Not for money. But because the world needs to hear what she has to say." Emma stood up and hugged him. Not the polite hug you give a celebrity. The real kind. The kind you give someone who sees you. Simon hugged her back. And for a moment, the man known for crushing dreams held a girl who'd turned her pain into something beautiful. That moment, that private, unfilmed moment, is the one Simon says changed him. Because it reminded him that behind every performer is a person. Behind every song is a story. And sometimes, the most important thing a judge can do isn't critique. It's listen. Emma went on to the live shows. She didn't win the competition. But that didn't matter. Because by the time the season ended, her song, "Come Home," had been streamed over 50 million times. It became an anthem for military families. It was played at memorials, at homecomings, at moments when words weren't enough. And every single time Simon heard it, he thought about that night. About the girl who reminded him why he does this. Years later, in an interview, Simon was asked about his most memorable moment on AGT. He didn't hesitate. "Emma," he said. "The soldier's daughter. She didn't just perform. She taught me something I'd forgotten. That courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and doing it anyway." She was terrified. But she sang. And in doing so, she honored her father in the most profound way possible. The host asked if he'd stayed in touch. Simon smiled. "She texts me every year on her father's birthday. Just to say thank you. And every year, I tell her the same thing, I should be thanking her." Because that night, Simon Cowell didn't just stop a show. He stepped into someone's grief and held space for it. He broke protocol, ignored the rules, and chose humanity over production value. And in doing so, he reminded everyone watching that behind the sharp suits and cutting remarks, he's a man who understands what it means to lose someone you love. That's the Simon Cowell most people don't see. The one who kneels on stage for a grieving child. The one who gives away his personal number. The one who uses his platform not just to find talent, but to amplify the voices of those who need to be heard. Emma's story didn't end with a trophy. It ended with healing. With connection. With a reminder that sometimes, the most powerful performances aren't the ones that win. They're the ones that make us feel. The ones that break us open and remind us we're all human. All fragile. All searching for a way to say goodbye to the people we've lost. And Simon, the man who's made a career out of being tough, showed the world that real strength isn't about never breaking. It's about knowing when to stop everything, walk onto a stage, and hold space for someone else's pain. If this story moved you, share it. Subscribe. Because moments like this remind us why we watch. Why we cry. Why we believe in second chances and the power of a single voice to change everything. Simon Cowell stopped the show that night. But Emma, the soldier's daughter, stopped time itself. And her father somewhere heard every word.